All right, seventh grade. We're going to talk about angles today, angles and triangles. So we've got some definitions here that I'm going to go over for you. First one is angle. An angle is two rays with a common endpoint. So a ray is a line that starts with an endpoint and then goes forever and ever. Then we've got vertex. That's the point where the two rays of an angle meet. So if you look here, I'm circling right now. That's a vertex. That's a vertex. This is a vertex. That's where the two rays meet to form an angle. So I'm going to erase what I just wrote, just circled there. But those are vertexes. Then we've got a right angle. A right angle is an angle that measures exactly 90 degrees. Right angles, if you look around wherever you're sitting, they're all over the place. A right angle is doors have right angles. Windows have right angles. Then I skipped acute angle. An acute angle measures less than 90 degrees, so that's a smaller angle. Then you've got right angle, which is 90 degrees. Then you've got an obtuse angle, which measures greater than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees. That's a wider angle. Then we've got a straight angle, which measures exactly 180 degrees. A straight angle is just a straight line. They're the same thing. So down below here, we're supposed to classify each angle and estimate its angle measure. So we're going to classify this first one, number one, that would be obtuse. It's obtuse because it's a big angle. It's bigger than 90 degrees, bigger than a right angle. And if we had to estimate its angle measure, we know a right angle is 90. We know a straight line is 180. I would guess this, and I'm going to say this is 165 degrees because it's almost a straight line. It's close, but it's not right there. Notice I use that degree symbol. When we're talking about angles, they're measured in degrees, and they have a degree symbol. That's what that little circle means after the number. So let's look at this next one, number two. That one's smaller than a right angle, so it would be acute. Acute. And we know a right angle would be 90 degrees, so this is a little less. Let's call it 75 degrees, just a guess there. Let's look at our next one. That next one's a right angle. Even though it's turned sideways, we can still see it's clearly a right angle. And often, when you have a right angle, there will be a little symbol that's a box. And that box tells you that angle's a right angle. And finally, we've got a straight angle because we can see that this is just a straight line. All right, so that's some definitions there regarding angles. And we're going to use those definitions of angles for when we talk about triangles. So we can classify triangles two different ways. One way is to classify by their sides, and the other is to classify a triangle by its angles. So when I look at this one, I've got a couple different examples here. Notice this triangle in the middle. Notice there's these little tick marks. I'm going to circle them real quick. Those little tick marks there. Those little tick marks on the lines, they tell you that those sides are the same. Since each side has one tick mark, that means those sides are equal. They're the same length. So I can use that to know that this is a triangle that has three sides that are equal. So what kind of triangle would that be? That would be an equilateral triangle. In an equilateral triangle, all three sides are equal, and also all three angles are equal in an equilateral triangle. So that's the first one. Equilateral, all three sides, all three angles are equal. What about this triangle? So when I look at this one, a couple different examples here. Notice each of these sides have two tick marks. That means those two sides are equal. So this is a triangle that has two equal sides. And how do we define that? A triangle with two equal sides would be an isosceles triangle. So an isosceles triangle is a triangle with at least two sides of equal measure. So it has to have two equal sides to be isosceles. And one thing to know in an isosceles triangle is if these two sides are equal, that means these two angles also have to be equal. And that's information that will come in handy. All right, next up, we've got this. Notice I have a Dorito as an example. In this triangle, notice this side has one tick mark. This side has two tick marks. This side has 3 tick marks. So that middle triangle there, each side has a different amount of tick marks. That means each side is different. None of those sides are equal. So in this triangle, we have 3 sides that are not equal. That is what we call a scalene triangle. A scalene triangle is a triangle in which all 3 sides have different measures. So that's the 3 classifications by sides. We have all 3 sides are equal, which is equilateral. We have 2 sides are equal, which is isosceles. Then we have all 3 sides are different lengths, and that is scalene. And also in a scalene, if all 3 sides are different, so it's a scalene triangle, that means all 3 angles will be different as well. All right, now the other way to classify triangles is by their angles. So one way to classify it is if a triangle has a right angle. I can see right here the right angle symbol. So if a triangle has a right angle, shockingly, it is called a right triangle. That is a triangle that has a right angle. A triangle can never have more than one right angle. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. But a triangle can only have one right angle. It's impossible to have 2, because if you try to draw a triangle with 2 right angles, you'd end up drawing a rectangle. All right. Next up is, what if a triangle has an angle like that? A really large angle, which we know is an obtuse angle, an angle greater than 90 degrees. You can see my coat hanger example there is a triangle that has an angle greater than 90 degrees. Since this triangle has an obtuse angle, it would be an obtuse triangle, which is a triangle that has an obtuse angle, which is as an obtuse angle. It can only have one obtuse angle. It cannot have more than one obtuse angle. All right, last up, we've got this. So we've got triangles in which all 3 angles are smaller. All 3 angles are less than right angles. All 3 angles are acute angles. So this would be an acute triangle, a triangle in which that has all acute angles. All 3 angles would be acute. So that's all the definitions there. We talked about 3 ways to classify triangles by their sides. Equilateral, 3 sides equal. Isosceles, 2 sides equal. And my gosh, my brain's not working. Scalene, no sides equal. Then we talked about how to classify by their angles. We've got a right triangle, which has a right angle, an obtuse triangle, which has an obtuse angle, and an acute triangle, which has 3 angles that are all acute. So let's take that information and let's classify. So we're always going to classify 2 different ways, by sides and by angles. So I'm going to look at number 1 here. Number 1, I can see, so it's I was given angle measures in this one. I can see the angles are 80, 55, and 45 degrees. So my angles are 80 degrees, 55 degrees, and 45 degrees. So all 3 of those angles are less than 90 degrees. And also, all 3 of those angles are different. Since these angles are different, I know this is a scalene triangle, because if it has 3 different angles, that means it has 3 different sides. And then since all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees, I know this is an acute triangle. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, I can see the right angle there. So I already know it's going to be a right triangle. What about its sides? Do any of the sides look equal? No, I can clearly tell all 3 sides are different lengths. So this also is scalene, because all 3 sides are different lengths. So let's look at number 3. Number 3, I can see there's a really big angle right there. This is obtuse. So I can tell this is going to be an obtuse triangle. And then we weren't given, I think I should have probably marked, let's assume those 2 sides are equal because they look equal. And if they're equal, that means this is an obtuse triangle that has 2 equal sides. And 2 equal sides means isosceles. So this is an isosceles obtuse triangle. Let's look at our next one. I can see it has 3 equal sides. So I know it is equilateral because it has 3 equal sides. And then if it's equilateral, that means all 3 angles are equal. And I can look at those 3 angles and tell they are acute. It has 3 acute angles. So it is an equilateral acute triangle. So let's look at our next one. Number 5 here. This one I've been given angles measures, I've been given sides. I look at the 3 sides, they're 11, 15, and 20. They're all different. So this is scalene because it has 3 different side lengths. And then let's look at the angles. I can see there's a 104-degree angle. That's more than 90. So I know this is an obtuse triangle. So scalene, obtuse. So let's look at our last one here. Our last one, I see the right angle. I know it's a right triangle. So next, I'm going to look at its sides. I look at these sides, and I can see 2 sides are equal because they've got the tick marks there. So if it has 2 equal sides, that means it is isosceles. So it is an isosceles right triangle. So we've classified each triangle. All right, that is it.